Insomnia. Seems like we all have it these days, keeping us up at night, depriving us of sleep. Maybe it's not actually a disorder. Maybe the problem is the assumptions that we have about sleep. Maybe we don't have insomnia at all. Let's go on an adventure. See what we can find. This is Rebel Scum Jack Styles, and I present to you Natural Alternatives. Sleep. It seems like something that just about every animal on this planet does. There's still so much that we don't know about sleep, but studies and research have provided us with some insight as to why animals sleep, along with uncovering details on some of the sleep habits of different animals. Among mammals, sleep patterns and hours can differ dramatically. Some animals can thrive off very little, while others seem to spend most of their life snoozing away. Let's look at examples of some mammals and their average hours of sleep per day. Cats, 12 hours. Cows, 4 hours. Dogs, 8 hours. Elephants, 3 hours. Giraffes, 5 hours. House mice, 12 hours. Lions, 13 hours. Rabbits, 8 hours. And to top this short list, brown bats get 20 hours a day, including hibernation. Hibernation is a sleep-like state, not an extended sleep state. It's entered by animals to conserve energy either when food is scarce or during severe temperature changes. Eating, moving, and pooping are still a thing, but done very infrequently. Aspects include lowered body temperature, heart rate, metabolism, and respiratory rate. Some of these things also happen during sleep, but they happen to a deeper degree during hibernation. Sleep is also enjoyed by marine animals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish, and many other organisms on this planet. Despite our differences from these other animals, sleep is clearly something we share in common. So, why is sleep important to so many of God's creatures? Although we don't have a complete consensus on the purpose of sleep, an abundance of research has led us to theorize that sleep could be critical for allowing our brains to process information and memories. Additionally, sleep allows parts of our brains to take a break and enter restful states that aren't possible while being awake. Just from our regular experiences, it's pretty clear how our performance in everyday tasks tends to suffer when we are sleep deprived. Sleep deprivation, depending on severity, can come with a host of consequences for our bodies and minds, ranging from unpleasant to downright fatal. Much of the developed world today operates on a specific schedule. We typically consider work hours to be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., have dinner sometime around 6 to 8 p.m., and usually fall asleep, or at least try to, anywhere from around 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. And during this time, we tend to have the expectation that we'll lay down, fall asleep, and wake up around 6 to 8 hours later. But where did this come from? And is this how we've always slept? Many sources argue that prior to the Industrial Revolution, it was common in many populations for people to indulge in biphasic and polyphasic sleep patterns. The common sleep pattern today is monophasic, where we attempt to get all of our sleep in one 6 to 8 hour chunk for every 24 hours. Biphasic sleep, on the other hand, involves 2 periods of sleep within a 24-hour period. And then you have polyphasic sleep, where sleep is broken down into multiple different periods, typically 3 or more, within a 24-hour period. So, why would sleeping patterns change after the Industrial Revolution? And in what manner did people sleep before that point in history? Research by the famous historian A. Eckhart found that the literature of medieval England and France had references to the idea of a first sleep, which could be called dead sleep, and a second sleep, which could be called morning sleep. Biphasic and polyphasic sleep was such common practice in most of France that they have a word specifically for the period between the first sleep and the second sleep. This intermediary period of time was referred to as the Dorveille, or wake sleep. After the sunset, many people would have their first sleep, which lasted around 3 to 4 hours. After waking, the Dorveille would begin. The Dorveille was a common time for people to reflect, pray, study, write, read, and for some reason, numerous sources also claim that this was a time people would indulge in the woohoo. This time between the first and second sleep is one that fostered a period of increased thought and creativity. After being awake for around 3 to 6 hours, these Dorveillians would then go back to sleep for another 3 to 4 hours, allowing them to accumulate a total of 6 to 8 hours of rest for every 24-hour period. So, what is it about the widespread adoption of electricity and light bulbs that led to changes in our sleeping patterns? In order to help regulate our sleep, people have an internal built-in process called the circadian rhythm. And although this process is internal, it is adjusted and affected by environmental cues, such as light and temperature. So as we've gotten into the habit of turning on our lights once the sun goes down, we subject ourselves to artificially extended light instead of accepting the darkness on the sun's schedule, which in turn impacts our natural circadian rhythm. The effect of this is far more pronounced compared to that which came by light from fire, in the form of candles, lamps, and lanterns, which tend to be much dimmer and more natural in their hue. Electricity enabled us to make light at night much brighter and with more unnatural hues. The invention and widespread adoption of electricity resulted in us artificially extending our day, shifting our bedtime by a few hours and pushing us to consolidate our sleep into a monophasic pattern. By now you've probably figured that there are variations on biphasic and polyphasic sleep schedules. Let's look at some examples of polyphasic schedules that one might argue are a bit more extreme. The everyman sleep schedule involves one 3-hour period of sleep along with 3 20-minute naps. This yields a total of 4 hours of sleep per day, depending on variation. The Uberman sleep schedule involves 20 to 30-minute naps every 3 to 4 hours. This yields a total of 2 to 4 hours of sleep per day, depending on variation. This type of sleep schedule was used by Nikola Tesla and Leonardo da Vinci. Believe it or not, there was a method behind the Uberman madness. Creative minds sought to induce a state called hypnagogia, which is a transitional state between wakefulness and sleep. Chronic sleep deprivation increases the propensity for the body to go into REM sleep whenever it can, which is needed in order for the brain to function properly. Hypnagogia is reported to provide lucid dreams, thoughts, and sometimes hallucinations, which may induce different perspectives that could be useful for producing art, inventions, or problem solving. Lastly, we have the Dymaxion sleep schedule, which involves 30-minute naps every 6 hours. This yields a total of 2 hours of sleep per day. Given the dangers of sleep deprivation, I don't advocate for the Everyman, Uberman, or Dymaxion sleep schedules. However, if you feel compelled to try any of these sleep schedules, please take all the necessary precautions. Approach very carefully. Do not put yourself in any dangerous situations. Stop if you are no longer comfortable, and proceed at your own risk. So, if biphasic and polyphasic sleep patterns were far more common prior to the last couple hundred years, are there any advantages to reverting back to the old ways? To start, biphasic and polyphasic sleep allow for a more flexible approach to getting enough hours of rest. If we adhere to the monophasic sleep schedule and something in our lives disrupts our sleep, it can be really difficult to get all the rest we need. One could try to make up for the lack of sleep by taking an afternoon nap, like the traditional siesta, which is more of a cultural norm in places like Greece and Spain. I think this is probably better than allowing yourself to continue feeling sleep deprived. However, let's consider the ideal conditions for sleeping. Typically, this involves our environment to be both quieter and darker, which, depending on where you live and where you happen to be in the afternoon, having a satisfying nap can be a little challenging. This is where traditional biphasic sleeping comes in. Let's say we go to bed around 7 or 8 p.m. for our first sleep. Maybe things don't go perfectly, and something uncontrollable causes us to only catch around 2 hours of sleep prior to the Dorveille. During a time where the sun is still down and society is less active, we could make up for the lost hour or two during our second sleep after the Dorveille. With monophasic sleeping, you've only got one shot to get right. But with a traditional biphasic sleeping pattern, you have 2 shots to get right. The downside is that with modern lighting methods, we've become conditioned and socialized to work until 5 p.m. or later, and have dinner and social gatherings after that. If you're going to sleep when the sun goes down, you'll probably miss out on a few events that take place during that time. However, if you plan to engage in an activity oriented anytime between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m., then this would fall right into the schedule of your regular Dorveille. On top of the aforementioned flexibility for obtaining enough hours of sleep, research by anthropologists have found evidence that cave-dwelling populations of previous times had segmented sleep habits, allowing them to keep watch through the night for possible danger or for hunting nocturnal creatures for sustenance. Think about it. If you lived in an environment or a situation that could throw danger at you in the middle of the night, you'd probably want to stray away from passing out for 8 hours consecutively every night. Perhaps we can consider monophasic sleep schedules to be a possibly detrimental modern luxury and socially induced expectation that was simply not safe or practical in times past. Given the challenges people face when it comes to getting enough rest and balancing busy lives, many people have turned to prescription sleeping medication. Modern sleeping drugs can have their advantages and disadvantages. I'll let you do your own research and find out for yourself. Natural sleep aids include chamomile, lavender, lemon balm, kava, passion flower, tart cherry, and valerian root. Chamomile tea is a personal favorite of mine. If you'd like to try these natural alternatives, use the affiliate links in the description below, because then not only will you be supporting my work, but you'll be supporting the niche market of wonderful products and brands that provide us with natural alternatives. Since I began researching this topic, I decided to try traditional biphasic sleeping for myself. And I gotta say, it's got some advantages. When working on projects in the middle of the night, and having already gotten at least a few hours of sleep, the Dorveille feels like an incredible time of focus and productivity. So maybe you don't have insomnia. Perhaps it's natural for the mind to become more active during a certain time of night. Maybe you're missing out on some of the best ideas and innovation by foregoing the Dorveille. It's possible that what we consider insomnia is merely an incongruency between our body's natural clock and the modern schedules we've locked ourselves into. It's up to you to break free. I hope you enjoyed the adventure. If you have, hit the subscribe button, because then we can go on more adventures together. Become a Patreon member at patreon.com/jackstyles, because then you'll be able to support my work, message me directly, and more. Visit jackstyles.blog, because that's where you can find some additional interesting content. Thank you for watching, and as always, Godspeed, God bless.